I am David Christie. I am the president and COO of Globex Mining. Globex Mining is a royalty generator company. We acquire properties, we develop those properties, we sell those properties, and we retain a royalty. And we're a growing asset base of royalties in the space.
David, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Been a while, man. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah? You ended up somewhere quite good. And
Yeah.
you're going to try and explain it to me today. Because I've always found, I've been trying to understand what Globex does, because there's so many strings to the bow. There's a lot kind of going on there, but you mentioned the word royalties about 8 times. So how do you position the company?
Well, you know, the company has always been an acquisition company. We acquire properties and we do it inexpensively, and we do it out of cycle quite often. Like we have antimony properties in New Brunswick, which are being developed now. Yeah. But we picked those up when antimony wasn't a thing, and now it is. So we tend to do that, and we'll continue to always do that. But the end result of everything we do is to retain a royalty, make money and retain a royalty. Okay. So this is what we do. So
they're kind of long lead items in terms of revenue, tend to be royalties. So let's talk about some of the other things that you do, which kind of cover the overheads, because you're sitting with a bunch of cash in the bank at the moment, right?
40 million plus. Yeah.
So healthy.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
It's come from deals. So when we sell projects, we get shares in cash quite often.
Yeah.
It's come from mostly for deals and some acquisitions of our own, but mostly from deals. So it's about half cash, half equities. A big chunk of the equities is senior precious metal equities like Agnico Eagle, Pan American, Alamos Gold. So
okay. So it might be kind of worth kind of going through it in sequence, in the sense that, right, you prospect generating, which is not what you are, but it's part of what you do to kind of create these options for other people, and options for yourself to kind of work over. So who does that? How does that work? And how much are you staking?
So the entire team sort of works on that, and Jack Stock, the founder, is integrally involved in picking properties, as am I. So we pick properties, we watch what's coming open for staking, and when we think it's valuable land to stake, we acquire that land, and we work it ourselves, bring it to a certain place. Sometimes we work it for a long time. If we think there's a lot of value there, we'll continue to work it. Like we made a discovery on our Ruin merger project in November. Hit 3.44 grams over almost 40 meters. Excellent discovery. So we're going to do a lot more work on that in the coming months.
So just so you understand the staking thing, you're not specifically seeking any one metal. You talk about hitting antimony when it was not fashionable.
Right.
Your view was at some point it might be. So therefore, stake it.
So I think the way we look at commodities is anywhere we think we can make money, we're going to acquire projects in that commodity. So we have everything from, we're about half gold and precious minerals, but we're about a quarter base metal, so lead, zinc, nickel. And then the other quarter is a mixture of everything from silica sand to dolomite to manganese to magnesium to antimony to iron ore.
Right. But the ultimate goal is get an NSR on it at some point.
Yeah. Will we ever develop one of them ourselves? Maybe.
Maybe.
But like if we can't get the money we think it's worth, we'll push it forward on our own.
Because I think I'm getting distracted. I'm distracting myself here. But with royalty companies, I've interviewed a few over the years, and they have different business models now. Clearly, precious metal seems to be the thing that you need to do if you go into royalties, right? Those are the ones that kind of get rolled up, get the value, and get rolled up into some of the bigger boys. The slightly more esoteric metals like the antimony or any other kind of battery metals, not quite getting the love and attention. Maybe copper a little bit. So, is there kind of preference, or do you think that you start to change the focus more towards precious metal as a result of focusing more on the end value, which is this NSI royalty model?
Well, the center of gravity for us is the Abitibi of Quebec and Ontario. So we have a lot of gold projects, and we'll continue to have a lot of gold projects just because of where we are in the world. Yeah. Also a lot of copper projects. So we will always do that. We have a group in Nevada as well, staking claims. So we have a number of gold claims in Nevada, Arizona, and we'll continue to do that. So gold's, I'm a gold guy, so gold's always easiest as far as, it's not the easiest to develop, but it's easiest to identify potential.
Yeah, it's understood.
Yeah, it's understood. But we have a fluorspar asset in Arizona. We have rare earth projects. And you know what? We're getting calls on those almost as much as we are on the gold projects. So
okay, but the inherent value for you there is the either farm in or the sale of said
Yes.
asset, not necessarily the longer term NSR on it, right?
No, well, we get the longer term NSR is huge, so we get the cash.
Who buys that from you? Who would buy that from you? Say it's a fluorspar.
There's an Australian company maybe, or American company. So we talk to all sorts of people on those kind of projects.
Okay.
So we sold our rare earth project in Nevada or Arizona, to an Australian company. So
Yeah, so I'm trying to separate the two. So there's an immediate value on whatever the rare earths say, but if you've also got an NSR on it, when does that get monetized? When does that create value for you?
well, so it depends on the project. So for early stage projects, it's a long ways off, right?
Yeah.
So the optionality just stays with us.
But specifically with something esoteric like a fluorspar or rare earths.
Yeah, well, I think those kind of things can go to production faster because they're not huge deposits, right?
Yeah.
They're high value, small deposits. And so I think they can go to production faster. And in places like the States, your road to permitting is quicker than it is in places like Quebec.
So that's just a steady income from the NSR, but in terms of chances of selling that to another royalty company, less likely? Is that fair?
There are other royalty companies that delve into many commodities, but there's fewer of them. For sure, precious metals, and there's a few base metal royalty companies now, but I'm not going to mention any names, but there are a few that will do other commodities.
Just trying to understand the market, right? Because it's just, there's lots of revenue opportunities for you, and I'm just trying to compartmentalize them in my head. So that's fine.
I also think that royalty companies don't necessarily get a better premium as a precious metal royalty company than they do for a base metal royalty company, and not anymore.
But the number of
P/ADVs aren't the same as they used to be.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking the number of buyers of NSRs
Yes.
and royalties. Like I say, it's not a big. I don't want to make a big thing out of it. It's just compartmentalizing it in my head. There's lots of ways you're making money.
Yeah, sure.
So lots of your team doing the staking and project generating. Who then decides? Okay, these are the ones that we want to option, and these are the ones we want to work over ourselves. How do you do that?
Well, I'm going to go back on that a second. We will sell any project we have for the right price. Right. So if someone comes up and offers us a ridiculous amount of money for one of our projects that we thought we were going to develop ourselves, we're happy to sell it to them and keep a nice juicy royalty. But stepping back on that, we do have a list of projects that myself and Jack and our VP of Exploration sort of look at, and we decide these ones we're going to do a lot of work on this year. But if at any time someone comes and says we'd like to buy that from you, and they offer enough, and then sure we'll sell it. And at $5,000 gold, it's got to be a lot to be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great time. It's a great time. Make hay. But with the kind of money that you've got in the bank, you're under no pressure to work something at a certain speed or sell something when you don't want to, because you've got the money there to kind of drive that optionality. You also got presumably the optionality at the speed at which you allocate that capital, you spend that money, and where you spend it as well, because of the portfolio size. It's almost quite attractive for you.
Yeah, well, we're also making about $5 million a year, so we're not really dipping into that $40 million too often.
Making it from
option payments, advanced royalties,
and
on
royalties,
average.
That's the number. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not bad. So do you actually have drills of your own?
We don't own drills, but we have drilling projects of our own, for sure.
Right. So in terms of the projects which are either optioned or that you're working over, how many meters are being drilled this year?
How many meters this year? Not much. I think we've drilled 1,000 meters this year, but we will have more in the coming months. We're just doing IP work on our Ruan merger project. We'll drill that. We will probably drill 2 other projects this year, maybe 3.
Yeah. It's actually your own stuff. What about in terms of people optioning in or farming into something?
So if we add up all the meters being drilled on our option properties, our royalty projects, and our own, it's well over 300,000 meters being drilled.
300,000 meters?
Yeah, we have a couple big royalties.
Right.
The O'Brien project that Radisson's drilling.
Yeah.
We have royalties on that. So that's 140,000 meters right there. And they just announced a big uptick in their resources, which is huge for us.
Oh yeah, they were here yesterday.
They're doing great work. And they're right next door to one of our wholly owned projects, which we're going to look at doing a lot more work on.
Yeah.
And then there's the Cartier's Cadillac project, We have royalties on that.
100,000 meters this year.
Yeah, we have a 3% GMR on that. So
Nice.
they're doing lots of work on that, and they're finding a lot of stuff on our claims.
Good grades.
So,
Yeah.
so that's exciting. So we have quite a few gold projects like that where things are happening.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, so 300,000 meters. Okay, in terms of, so that I'm getting a sense of where the revenue's coming from and the bits that you're in control of and the types and the quality of the partners which you select. So just on that kind of selection of people farming in, you've got to have some expectation they'll kind of move the asset along. It's not a case of first person comes along, or here you go. So how do you do that selection process?
Well, you know, we look at people that we think have the capability of raising money. And we'll talk to anyone, but quite often the people who can't raise the money can't make the offer we want to see. Right. So we need to see people who can make the payment commitment that they've made in the agreement. If they can't do that, then there's no sense doing a deal with them, right? So,
yeah, true. Yeah, okay. I think that the other thing is, in terms of the amount of work that you do in terms of the staking and the optioning, etc. The company's obviously grown. You know, you're busy staking these things, and in markets like this, it must be a great time. So you want to be busy, but at the same time, markets come off again. How do you structure these agreements and deals with these earn-ins? If they don't spend their required money in the required time, you get it back 100%?
We get it back 100%. You know, we have 270 mineral assets.
Yeah.
And about 107 of those are royalties, and we want to protect that.
Yeah.
So if they can't make it go all the way and exercise the option to purchase the project, then we want it back, because we want to keep those pieces of land and sell it to the next guy. And we don't mind when that happens at all, because you know, they've paid us some money, some shares, and if they can't do it, we get it back and it goes to the next guy.
Okay. Just looking at the royalties, so I'm bouncing around a bit here, but there's so many moving parts here, which is, I guess, the secret sauce for you guys. I always look at royalties in two ways. One, what royalties are being paid today, what royalties are being paid in the next 2 years, and what royalties in, you know, say, up to 5 years out. So can you break that down for me in terms of what you think is coming down the line?
So I think in the next like 2 to 5, well, actually next 1 to 5 years, there's going to be a number of big royalties coming out. First of all, a small one, Bell Mountain in Nevada, small little heap leach gold deposit. That's supposed to go to production into this year, beginning of next. Okay. Then we have things like Mount Sorcier, iron ore deposit, world-class deposit, feasibility study this summer, permit applications in by the end of the year. 2 years from then, they'll be building that thing, and that's huge cash flow for us. We have a 1% GMR on that. It's going to produce a lot of iron ore, and iron ore should get permitted quicker in Quebec than everything else, because it's a critical mineral. So we're looking for a lot of money out of that. Then we have a number of gold things like the ones I mentioned, the O'Brien, the Cadillac with Cartier, and we think those will go to production. You know, Cartier's got a big ownership from Agnico Eagle in their shares, so I think those kind of things are going to happen quickly.
Okay, interesting. So how do you see the evolution of the company over the last 5 years, and is much going to change in the next 5 years? Like you put in at the helm, presumably to address certain opportunities. So can you describe that for me?
Yeah, I think the next 5 years we transition to a royalty company more so than being a project generator.
Okay.
And I think that's the big change. Globex has had paying royalties before. Zinc mine that we had a royalty on, but zinc prices collapsed and the mine shut down, and we sold that royalty actually for a lot of money. But I think this next phase is huge. We're going to have a number of big royalties starting to pay. Manganese X, we have the royalty on Battery Hill in New Brunswick, which is a manganese deposit. That's going to go to production. They're doing a pre-feasibility right now. And then we have those 2 gold antimony projects in New Brunswick. Both of those are going very fast towards production. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes on stream, gold and other metals. And I think that's going to be the big changing thing for this company going forward. So the revenue won't just be from option payments and a couple small royalties. It's going to start to be from some big royalties, right, in a variety of metals, not just gold.
Right, but with the same mentality, like when you come from sort of humble beginnings, when you're starting out, I'm sure Jack's got this thing going. You have monetization events regularly because you need to cover G&A. You don't want to be like doing rollbacks or refinancing and diluting and all that kind of good stuff. So if I take what you said and say positioning more as a royalty company, I'm thinking okay, you build that up, as many royalties as you can, and given what I've seen in the market and what's happened historically, you get to a certain critical mass, you get taken out, right? There's a model, a business model. Or, given the entrepreneurial background of this thing, is it more a case of, yeah, we are a royalty company, but with an engine of our own to kind of create these royalties, but we can work up some assets ourselves, monetize those. We can option stuff really early on, monetize those. There's still that kind of desire for constant revenue rather than long play and value through the amount of royalties that you've got. How do I see
Well, I
it?
think
How should I view it?
both of those things are true. So
Right.
I think the potential is here to spin out some parts of our company.
Okay.
The potential is here for us to go buy things ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we haven't done an equity issue in forever. We have 56 million shares outstanding, never done a rollback, been around since '87. So when you think of that, if we saw something we really wanted to buy and we thought we could do a 1 + 1 = 5, we could go issue equity to do it.
Okay.
And I think our market, if we can show NAV accretion in a big way, the market would be fine with that.
Yeah.
So we can be an acquirer, or like you mentioned, others can acquire us. So all those things are possible, and I think people will start to see the value in this company, and we will start to use that value. So both directions are possible here.
Nice optionality. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's of the moment, or do you think that can kind of move through cycles?
I think it can move through cycles because we're well protected. We're commodity agnostic. We're not glued to one type of thing like a lot of companies are. There's a lot of gold royalty companies out there. Will not touch anything without having gold in it, right? So we will do anything we think we can make money on. So we're going to do deals on things that will work for us, whether that's bulk commodities or gold or zinc or whatever it may be.
Hustling. I like it. David, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you
and,
too.
And congrats on this position, and nice to see. Well, stay in touch actually, because I'm going to see how you kind of evolve this through and see people kind of pick it up as a royalty company, proper as it works. That's a very different kind of valuation on that.
Yeah, I think they will in the very near future.